Sick of being stressed. And when I say sick of, I mean like literally stress could be killing you. Well, this resilience reset is all about how do you break that habit of spinning in the destructive stress vortex. And I would like to share so many strategies with you, but I am going to cap it. I will not go on for an hour, but this is just a topic that I'm so incredibly passionate about because I know people are stressed. And in many ways, I truly believe we don't need to be. Now, there's certain types of stress that are critically important in our lives and that we cannot get rid of. And it really depends on how you interpret stress. So, we could have a bit of a debate around that. But I think a lot of the destructive stress, a lot of the stuff that is making people feel so unhappy is within our control to fix. And so I'm going to give you some ideas and strategies, and be aware that today I might push a little bit harder than I sometimes do, because I think we need to get deeper in order to fix the situation. And, I know people are unhappy because I had my first, semi viral, post. I had over 200 and I think 40,000 views. So that's pretty cool for me. Like, in my world, I'll tell you how many views I have on the post that said, "Are you unhappy at work?" No, 235,000 views. But still, like, that's incredible for reaching people. But the thing is that makes me so sad is that the click was because I'm unhappy at work. And so a lot of that is related to stress. And I believe a lot of that stress is unnecessary. And so we are going to go on a journey to fix that. Now, if you are here live, I want to hear from you in the chat box. As always, I will bring up your comment onto the screen. So be aware of that. And super excited to have you here with us today. And let's get into this. So, the first thing to recognize is the difference between good stress and destructive stress. So, good stress, the way it was designed is so that it will inspire us, and good stress will focus us. And the original purpose for stress was to keep us alive, right? And so it's supposed to happen in spurts. It's not supposed to be a constant. And the problem with our today's stressed culture is that we are a constantly stressed society. And we're busy, 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 but I don't believe that just because you have a lot to do, you need to ultimately be stressed. So by the end of this, that will make sense and you'll know how to turn that off. Now, destructive stress is different. Destructive stress is anything that takes you away from your sweet spot of performance, productivity, and profitability. It is the kind of stress that makes us feel anxious, right? It's anxiety provoking, it's overwhelming, it's like buzzy, right? That's the kind of stress that we don't want because it will actually do the opposite of inspiring you. It will likely overwhelm you. It will do the opposite of focus you. What it does is it makes people go in too many different directions, and then we're not we're not focused, and we are trying to multitask and all those things, and then that just adds to the level of stress. Okay, so let's keep going. I think one of the things I've written down here is that some people don't even realize that they're caught in the destructive stress vortex. Because if you're a really high achiever and you're just used to performing and you have a response that is of that buzzy, overwhelmed nature, and you just keep going and going and going, and you think that like this is how life has got to be, then that's a problem, right? So what we want to do is we want to figure out how do you approach stress? Like what is your philosophy around it? What are you feeling it? How does it show up in your body? Like for me, the way it shows up is usually in my stomach. I get like really antsy, and I get also very shallow in my breathing. So like up here. Okay? So that's what I know. So I know that I'm exhibiting physical signs of destructive stress if I'm shallow breathing and not being able to focus and really get into the zone. Okay, so those are my cues. What are your cues? You need to know. And then you can break out of it. Now, Let's look at like a core philosophy or that I think is important to recognize is that we have all this stuff that is external to who we are. Okay. So it is the task list we need to do. It is the obstacles we need to solve. It is the relationships that we're in. All of it is separate than us. Then we also have us and our reaction to all of that stuff. And it's in between this us to that stuff. Our reaction is where the stress is caused. Okay. So our reaction to the stuff is the stress. The stuff itself is not stress. The stuff itself are tasks, obstacles, and adversities, the things we need to deal with. Okay. So if it's our reaction, then what type of a reaction causes the destructive stress? You may be asking. Well, I will tell you this it is misplaced emotion, negative storylines, and barriers to performance like procrastination and not setting boundaries and worrying and judgment and comparing and. Okay, all of those little pieces of the puzzle that are our human experience. That's what takes something that's on the external and causes it to be destructive stress. Okay? So, if we know that that's what causes it, we can reverse engineer our reaction to those things, that stuff, so that we can stop causing destructive stress when it's unnecessary in our lives. So, for example, let's say our negative storylines. I would ask yourself, like, I'm feeling really destructively stressed right now. What are the storylines that I am sharing or I am speaking or thinking about? Right? And it might be future storylines of, oh my God, what if this happens? What if this happens? Or, catastrophizing what is going to happen, or being really bitter about it, or reading too much into a situation, or being angry, going into the misplaced emotion when you don't even necessarily know what the other person's intent was or what the facts of the situation are yet. It's a lot of what's happening in our head, and then ultimately what ends up happening in our heart is what ends up causing the destructive stress. And like if you think about worrying, for example, and I know I talk about worrying a lot because I used to be a huge worrier, and then I was able to overcome that barrier to performance because I recognized that worry is a down payment on a problem that you may never have. And so it's like, I've heard people say it's rehearsing for trauma. It's rehearsing for something to go wrong. And so if you think that your brain can separate between the reality and what you're perceiving and worrying and creating to be your reality, it can't. Like if we're thinking this is going to be awful, then what ends up happening is we have the stress response to it. And the thing is, often what we create is not in our mind, is not even what ends up happening. There's a whole other, host of stories that our imagination can't even figure out. Just kind of cool. So the first thing when you're thinking about getting out of that stress vortex is really examining the stories that you're telling yourself. Putting on your I see in here I comment Greg is out walking. Awesome. You know what? I love that, right? You're listening to podcasts, listening to different videos while you're out getting some exercise. You know me and exercise. I'm all about it, especially outdoors. Yeah, good. Glad. Thanks for checking in. Anybody else want to say something in the comments? By all means, please do. Put it in the comments. Okay. So the storylines, the misplaced emotions, the barriers to performance, those are what are causing the destructive stress. So we want to reverse engineer that and go, okay, what emotion am I putting on these situations? Is it really truly necessary? Or am I adding on misplaced emotion? Is it that this is where we talk about emotional discipline, whole other topic for another day, but knowing that. And then we look at the storyline. Is it the right storyline? Am I exaggerating? Am I making it harder? Am I buying into somebody's opinion on this that doesn't necessarily need to be there? So let's unpack that. And then the barriers to performance, right? Am I worrying about it, which is causing it to prolong before I even know what the issue is going to be? Am I procrastinating on it, which is prolonging how long I'm going to have to deal with the situation, right? We can go through and really reverse engineer that so that you can see where the destructive stress is coming from. Okay. The next thing I'm going to ask you, and this is where I said earlier, I'm going to push a little harder. And I think this question might offend some, but I'm okay with that because I think if you answer it honestly and if it's relevant to you, it may not be, then it's an important question to ask. Here you go. Do you actually want to be less stressed? Now, it may seem like a really simple question. However, the answer may surprise you because as I've worked with clients on this before and really dug into the situation, the truth of the matter is they get a lot of validation from being constantly stressed and constantly busy. And if they weren't stressed, if they didn't have this buzzy, I got to get everything done, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed storyline to feed their life, they would maybe feel less validated. They would perhaps feel less like they had something to contribute to society. There could be a warped sense of, if I'm way too busy and I've taken on way too many things and I'm constantly overwhelmed, then somehow I feel like I'm contributing to society. And the reason I know this is because I used to be like that. I used to have a post-it note on my window, on my mirror that said, deserve to hit the pillow. I didn't know how to relax. I didn't know, well, I knew how to collapse. I didn't know how to relax and truly enjoy it. And I I had a skew that if I wasn't doing everything for everybody, if I wasn't like go, that somehow I was failing. And it's this kind of thinking that we may not even realize we have. And it is so ingrained in who we are that coming out of that identity can have some serious implications, but in a positive way, how like we can, really shift our lives when we uncover if that's the case. Hey, Amanda's here. Awesome. Procrastination feels horrible. Getting better at doing the hard calls and emails. Good for you. It does, right? It just creates the stress. It's like this looming thing that's over your head. And I'm with you there, Amanda. And it's just easier to do the thing. Like I don't know. I'm really noticing lately this as I've become even more aware and I've been on this journey is like the satisfaction of doing something when you don't feel like doing it. It's like, I don't know. I think that might be called adulting. But, as adults, many of us easily can procrastinate, right? And I'm that's one of my things. I love a good procrastination. And when we actually do the thing, it feels really good. So good for you for working through that. Okay, so what's your identity if you're not stressed? Just food for thought. Okay. The next thing, also probably pretty hard hitting, is to ask and really examine who are you spending your time with? Because, well, there's an old saying coming to my mind, friends of a feather flock together, right? And so if you are constantly stressed and the people you're surrounding yourself with, if you objectively look at them, doesn't mean we don't love them. It doesn't mean anything, right? No judgment. Just we need to know for your circumstance, what is your environment? Because your environment will influence significantly how you feel about your life. And so if you're hanging out with people who dramatize everything, who are constantly stressed, who are overwhelmed, who feed into this busy is best culture, who don't want to ever relax without guilt, or you feed each other, like maybe your soundtrack is off, right? And so you feed into the, oh my God, I'm so stressed. Oh my God, I'm so stressed. Like playbook, then we have to examine how can we shift those relationships so they aren't having the exact same influence moving forward. Because what I know to be true is that if you don't make a change in how you respond, how your stress levels are, the last 6 months of your stress levels will mirror what the future 6 months of your stress levels will mirror. The circumstances may change, the players may change, but your response, unless you make a concerted effort to change it, will not. And so only you can decide, are you happy with the last 6 months? Do you feel good about that? And is that what you want moving forward for your life? Or are you really at a point where you're constantly stressed? Work is stressing you out, family is stressing you out, home is stressing you out, work is stressing. Like, I mean, it's the same. I'm saying the same thing over and over again. But is that what you want for the future? And if not, are you willing to change it? And the only way we can change it is to start unpacking some of this and reverse engineering our response to all of that external stuff. Because if we're waiting for the external stuff to change, we will never have full freedom in terms of our stress levels, our enjoyment, our happiness in our lives. So, something to consider. Okay, so sure, we've done all this. We've done storylines. Don't even realize they're stressed. Literally making people sick. Good versus destructive stress. My goodness, if you're just tuning in now, you missed a lot. You're going to want to watch the replay. All right. Who do you spend time with? And so the question I've written here as well is, are they positively or negatively influencing your stress levels? Okay. And if it's positive and you feel more relaxed when you're interacting with someone, you feel more empowered and inspired and focused, then keep going. But if they're negatively influencing or you're negatively influencing them because you're a soundtrack, the way that you two interact, then you've got to make some changes on how you communicate with those people. So interrupt the soundtrack, put a lid on the complaining, whatever the case may be. That is important. We went through, do you really want to be less stressed? And okay, so let's talk about the reaction to the outside stuff. All right, all these things that are going on. When we get really clear on what those things are and how we're responding, the in between, then it's up to you to decide, can you emotionally detach from the stuff? And maybe not all of the stuff, but some of the stuff, right? Some of the stuff does not require your emotional investment. It just doesn't. Like that 15-minute task does not require 3 hours of procrastination, right? You can not feel like doing something and still command yourself to actually do it. If it's important and it's going to be on your list and it's not going away, you may as well make it, just get it done. Rip off the Band-Aid, as they say. But like, are there things that are in that circle of stuff that are unknowingly, or now you're going to be aware, stealing your capacity unnecessarily, causing the destructive stress? Is there a way that you could emotionally detach from them? Just give them a little bit less of an emotional investment. Now, not everything, but some of it, that'll start to free up some of the capacity. Okay. And then what are we going to do when we figure this stuff out? Well, when you're feeling that destructive stress reaction, I'm going to ask you to lean into it, not ignore it, not do, my old gotta go technique. Don't like how it feels over here, I'm going to be busy over there. But actually lean into it and figure out and uncover, like, what story am I telling? What emotion am I bringing to it? Is it the right emotion, or do I need a little bit of emotional discipline to shift how I'm actually feeling about this circumstance? Right? What barrier to performance am I putting into the situation that I don't really need to be adding into the mix? Procrastination, or, you pick whichever one would be into it. So lean into it, feel the feels, get really crystal clear, look at what is that real issue, and then reverse engineer and unpack the snowman. If you don't know the snowman analogy, you got to go watch one of those videos because it's so important. That's how we can do it. Now, I'm going to share with you something called the critical 6 of stress management. And the problem with the critical six is that they're new tasks that need to be done in order to feel less stressed, to manage the stress in our lives. And you're going to recognize every one of these. Now, the problem is that, and this is another topic for another day, that adding them in when you already have a capacity equation that is not working, right? Meaning your personal capacity is too full for each and every day. And so adding these things in is actually adding another level of stress and guilt and feeling of failure into your day to day, then that becomes a problem. So the way my philosophy is that what I want you to do is I want you to figure out this capacity equation. Stop allowing those tasks and obstacles that are part of our lives to consume as much of our mental, emotional, and physical capacity as they are currently, so that we shrink the amount of effort that something takes in order to actually be dealt with out of the stuff, right? And then you have the freedom to add in these tasks that will ultimately help you physically manage the symptoms of destructive stress better. So, the destructive stress critical six are, no surprises here, you need to rest, right? Now, getting effective sleep when you are um, working at midnight to get caught up because you allowed interruptions all day long is not helpful or is not easy. So we got to fix the first issue so that you can get the rest. Do you see what I'm saying here? The capacity equation is off for many people. Next thing is exercise. And I have recently learned to love adding exercise into my day. And I got to tell you, many, many days it's not convenient. And I have to remind myself that most of the work I'm doing is not triaging heart attacks. And so that task circle can keep going for another 45 minutes while I go for a walk outside or I go for boot camp or whatever the case may be. But stress can be really positively influenced by our physical health, right? Having that, and I notice it, by the way, like I get so energized and, the sweating and it feels really good and you feel like you've accomplished something. And so if you're not there yet, you will be, but you need to exercise consistently to actually start to get those endorphins running. And, the other thing with the exercise that I think is great is that it just like you can come up with the best ideas, right? Because you've got clarity and you're away from your desk. Next thing, mindfulness. So that's your quiet time, your ability to be at peace, your thinking, meditation, whatever you want to call it, really critical and really important. The next one is your laughter. You need to be able to have some laughter in your life. But if we're so stressed, right, it's really hard to see the fun and the joy. And so, one of the things I've done over the years is just integrated laughter into the moments of stress, like being able to see the silver linings, being able to see the funny, right? Like maybe you need, if you're not the funny person who can make yourself laugh, then maybe you've got to consider surrounding yourself with some really funny people. Or watch YouTube videos for 5 minutes that are, put a timer because I know it can get a little bit down the rabbit hole on YouTube, but even consider just having a laughter break with a comedian. Michael McIntyre, gosh, I haven't watched him in ages. Forgot about him. He's my favorite comedian. I love watching his stuff. He'll always make me laugh. And so put on one of his videos and, it can shift your juju and help bring you out of that destructive stress physical response. Another thing for stress management is being optimistic. And I look at this as the silver lining thinking, right? I'm practical, optimist. I do believe that there is, always something good that can come out from the difficult. But the other thing is with that is that if the difficult's coming, I don't need to rehearse for it. You just trust yourself to deal with it later when it does happen, because, that's called life and most things eventually will. But then the last piece is you need to have the strong social supports. And the interesting thing about the critical six of stress management is that these are the first things to go when we get stressed, right? We stop hanging out with our friends. We stop laughing. We stop seeing the good in the mundane. We stop making time for ourselves and our self-care and the mindfulness. We're too busy to go for that big, walk or do something with exercise, and our sleep goes because we start going over and getting into that destructive stress vortex. So I hope that is important and helpful. The best strategy I use for getting out exercising is replacing have with get. I get to do X. Bingo. And you know what? I think I posted today. Actually, I don't. Not that I think I posted. I did post today about one of the ways to do it. And Greg, I think you've done this as well, is to shift your identity. Meaning, if you believe you're someone who goes for a walk every day, then your brain and your body are going to play along with your perception of yourself. If you believe you're someone who hates exercise, then your body and your brain are going to play along with that self. And so shifting your identity so that you expect that from yourself is really, really important. And then you get to. Yeah, that's cool. All right. So, but remember, all of those things that we need for actual stress management, we need to free up our capacity first before we can even add any of that into our day-to-day. Now, if you're just someone who wants to add it in, awesome. Right? You're like, oh, okay, yeah, that'll help me deal with my stress. Good, go for it. But I think it needs to be deeper than that. I think we have to shift how we're relating to all the stuff around us. Because if we're not shifting that, then at the end of the day, we're still going to be controlled by all of the external stuff. So there is my shindig, my little riff on the topic of feeling stressed. And if you are sick of being stressed, I seem to have lost my window here. Hold on a second. Where am I going to be? Oh, there I am. If you are sick of being stressed, here's what I know to be true. You can change it. You can shift your destructive stress response to everything that's going on around you, even if nothing changes. You are now, is it easy? No, I'm not going to suggest that it's like you wake up and go, okay, that's it. It's a process. But if you use my problem solving framework, which I've talked about many times in these lives, then you'll know, like, you can work through it. Like, even like Amanda said earlier, like procrastination, she's getting better at doing the hard things faster. Well, all we can ask you to do is a little bit better today than you did yesterday, and tomorrow a little bit better than that, and a little bit better than that. And sometimes you're going to go backwards, and that's okay. That's no problem, because then we're going to go a little bit better than that and a little bit better than that, right? It's just a process until you can be in the middle of I was going to say shitstorm, but that sounds not really great. But anyway, but you can be in the middle of a storm, call it whatever adjective you want, and you're standing with grace and confidence and not emotionally charged in the buzzy, destructive stress way. Like that's a freeing place to live your life. Yeah. All right. It's my hope for you. Well. It's been another Monday. I don't know who my guest is tomorrow. You're going to have to wait and see. I've got a request out, and if it works, that's great. And if it doesn't, then you never know. Never know what tomorrow is going to be, but I know I'll be here, God willing, at 3:15 Eastern. So I hope you'll join me for the Resilience Reset. And until then, may you stress less, do more, and be happier. Bye for now.